How's it going, guys? I hope you had a great holiday season. We are here back working on the Z today. Nothing too crazy, just kind of getting everything prepared. But basically, I really haven't been able to do much to the Z, and that's because I'm waiting on parts. If you've done a project, you know that parts are probably the hardest thing. And custom parts like exhaust and hood and bumper, those are things that I've been waiting for quite a long time, and they haven't shown up yet. But the hood and bumper should be in hopefully next week, I think. So if I make a video on that, and I'll show those in there. They look super cool. They're of course the ones from Japan. They were a pretty penny, so I'm really excited to get them in, but they're gonna look super sweet. And then exhaust, I'm waiting on my custom top mount, like AC area location manifold, and downpipe. And I sent my turbo housing and the wastegate out to all get custom integrated, so that should be coming back soon as well. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later. And then the transmission, guys, I dropped my transmission off at a shop about a month and a half ago, I want to say by now, and I haven't heard anything back from it, and they kind of keep dodging my calls, so fingers crossed they at least still have my transmission, and will at some point either fix it or give it back to me. So we are going to go ahead and just kind of do a little bit of different stuff today. So the engine has been in here, and it has just been sitting and waiting for parts and stuff. So I think I'm gonna go ahead. I bought an engine stand here. I got this on Amazon. It was only like 90 bucks, so not too bad. It is a Touring Big Red or whatever. And we're gonna go ahead and use the engine hoist to lift it up and set it on our stand here, because we're gonna go ahead and do valve cover gaskets while it's out. And then I think I might do a timing belt, although I haven't ordered parts for that yet. I think I'm going to go with the Gates Blue stuff, because that's their racing line, and it'll look pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get that engine back out of here. It's a pretty tight fit. You can see all the parts we've got in here. So let's go ahead and see if we can get that on an engine stand. And real quick, guys, before I forget, I wanted to let you know that I did just release a new product on the zgarage.net. It's the fuel tank O-ring gasket kit. So it's the 3 O-rings that you can need to reseal your gas tank, excuse me. And that's something that Past Power had for quite a while, but they just haven't had any in stock. So I want to go ahead and fill in that gap. I'm not really trying to compete with them. I'm just trying to make sure you guys have the ability to reseal your tanks if you need. So definitely go ahead and check out thezgarage.net. Some people have been asking me about the merch page that I had, and different things that are no longer available. I use Teespring, guys, and it's been kind of weird. They've been taking down some stuff. So there's a lot that's not there anymore, and when I get a little bit of time, I will go ahead and add some new designs up there, or try to find a new vendor, ideally somebody that is not going to take down my stuff just because it says Nissan on it or something like that. But yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and hopefully get some more of that in soon. But definitely check out zgarage.net and just see all the cool stuff that we have, and the new products that I'm gonna be releasing here soon. I love working on things and developing new processes, so hopefully we'll get some cool molded pieces in here soon. I'll definitely make a video when I do that. But yeah, so let's go ahead and jump back to this engine. Alright, guys, as you can see, we got it on the engine stand. It did take me a bit of time to find bolts for this back part here. So the engine block is threaded M10 by 1.5. So you're going to need some bolts. And then I found the length for these that I was going to need. For these that I was going to need is about 75 to 80 millimeters. This one here is a through hole, so I actually have a longer one going through the back with a nut on one end. This one is just threaded right into the block. That one is threaded right into the block. And then this one, it's got a peg similar to this one. These ones have little dowels to align. They do fit inside these. But this one is not a through hole, so you have to go ahead and make sure that you get the right length. So you can see I put a couple of washers on it just to shorten this one up, because this was a 90 millimeter bolt and I didn't need that much because Home Depot only had so much. But I wanted to show you guys just a couple features around the engine if you've never seen a VG out like this before. So of course, right off the front here we have our power steering pump. This is the water pump right here, and then the alternator. The alternator and the water pump are always on the same belt, pretty much on every car, I believe, because if this breaks, two things are going to happen. one, your battery's going to start to die, and two, your engine's going to overheat. So I'm pretty sure they do that so that if the belt breaks on here, your car will put up a warning light, say, hey, you got low voltage, or there's an error in the charging system. That way it's as close as to, hey, you're going to overheat your engine as possible kind of light. So those, and then of course there's our harmonic balancer currently. I don't have the rest of it on. This is just the dampener, but there are, you know, belts there typically. Coming over here, got the water neck. You can see mine's super corroded and gross. I might try to get a new one of those. Here's the alternator on the back. This is a G35 alternator, and then I made a custom bracket for it. You can see up there. I went ahead and have those available on my site in case you guys are curious and want to upgrade. I think this is 110 amps. I think I'm going to be going to a Nissan Titan just a little bit here, and I believe that one's 135 or 140 amps. So it should be pretty much the exact same form factor and size as this one, but it's just going to be a little bit higher output. And then, of course, we got our motor mount, we got our oil filter right here, and then this is the oil pressure sensor. So I actually have an upgraded one right here. You can see it's Low Dollar Motorsports. This is a really good brand if you're going to be going aftermarket stuff. This one I think was like 35 bucks. And for a professional, like motorsport grade sensor, that is really, really good. So they make really cheap stuff, really good, high quality, and it works really well, especially with stuff like Megasquirt. It's really, really good. So I highly recommend doing a Low Dollar Motorsport if you guys are going to be doing something like that. Otherwise, the stock one sits here, and you don't need a little adapter for it like that. But it does, it's known to go out quite a lot, so it's not really a great sensor. So if your dash says you don't have any oil pressure, it's probably just lying. You probably do. But, you know, I like upgrading because it's just going to make it a little bit better in the future. So, other than that, there's not too much over here. This is a heater core pipe. So these two actually, right there and there, flow coolant through the heater core. We'll come over here. This is a engine lift point, I believe, back here, and then I put this disc on it. If you guys remember when I did my auto to manual transmission swap, this was called the drive plate, and so it's been repurposed to just give me a bigger lift point here for when I move my engine around. So that's pretty cool. And then here, of course, is the turbo manifold and turbo. So this one you can see right there's a crack right in the middle, so it's starting to crack. This is a very common place for these manifolds to crack. Most people would say, you know, you drill the end of the crack, that way it stops it, and then you weld together. So I'm, of course, going to be going to a different turbo manifold, so I don't really care about this. But it hasn't started leaking yet. You can see there's no, you know, soot or anything, so it hasn't been leaking. But that would be something you'd want to address if you're going to do a turbo swap and you saw yours cracked. You would want to make sure that you would weld that up before, especially if you're going to be using it in the long run. Turbo-wise, this is the HX35. This is what I did my turbo swap on. This is just from Amazon. It was like $200. This is actually my second one. The first one, let me show you. So right there is the oil feed. And I had a kink in my original line, and so I'm pretty sure that it was just, it didn't get enough oil pressure, and it got some pretty massive bearing wear. The shaft was really, it played a lot, had a lot of play in it, so this is technically my second. I don't think it's any fault of the turbo itself. I think I just had a little issue with the oil pressure. Another thing to note on this turbo, this is the oil outlet right here. And you can see, let me come over here real quick. So when you take the engine and put it roughly flat, the oil drain on the pan is almost level with the oil output. So you can see I actually have my center section here rotated tiny little bit to the side to angle it, because if it was straight down, what would happen is you'd have oil feeding in at the top, and then once it got to the bottom, it would have to go uphill to get back into the pan. And that's really not something you want to do, because it can cause oil to kind of push back up into here and blow out the turbo oil seals and everything. So this is overall just not an ideal situation. I think this turbo is too big for this application, unfortunately. Obviously, like custom fittings around here would probably make this a little bit cleaner, and you'd probably be able to run it perfectly horizontal or vertical like it was supposed to be. But this is just like off-the-shelf AN 90 degree kind of stuff to get back to the pan. And honestly, it's working fine. I don't think there's any oil coming out the seals right now, even though it is a tiny at a tiny little angle. And I don't think it's causing any issues with the bearing. So this is one of the reasons why I'm going to a upper mount, because I want to be able to go ahead and just drain really nicely back into the block, or the oil pan. So let's come back over here again. So like I was saying, this is the turbo oil feed. It's right underneath this motor mount bracket right here. This is a 4AN line. I forget what the fitting here. There's an adapter and then another adapter, I think, to go from like an M6 or a 6AN to a 4AN, and then just, you know, 4AN hose all the way back. This works really, really well. I have no issues with it. I would highly recommend using a braided line like this instead of something else that can get kinked. So that's what I ended up doing. I think that is pretty much everything. Of course, you have your thermostat in here. Water pump is right there. I'm going to probably be replacing these. I'll take you guys along with me and do a nice super visual timing belt replacement. I know I have some videos on it currently, but they're not the greatest videos, you know, so I'm going to go ahead and take you guys through the whole step of timing so that you can see all of the gears and everything all nicely. And hopefully that should turn out really well. One of the things that I always say when you're doing these, if your housing right here, this is the thermostat housing, if that's corroded like mine was, when I originally did mine, there was a literal hole in the side of this. And so I got this aftermarket replacement from AutoZone, and if you can see, it's just like this stamped sheet metal piece kind of from AutoZone, and it is different than the stock piece. The stock piece is actually cast aluminum, and it comes out to about right there, and so the bolts that go through it are significantly longer. And if you try to use longer bolts on that piece, it's going to give you a lot of issues. I ran into those issues when I did my first timing belt, so be very cognizant of getting the right length bolts in here when you're changing out to a new flange like this. So that is pretty much it, guys. I don't think I'm going to be doing too much more today and tomorrow. I think that's going to be it for this weekend. I know it wasn't really too much, but we're kind of waiting on a lot of stuff. I think the goal in the future is going to be redoing this wiring harness. If you watched my video on making it, it was a lot of fun. I want to say I probably spent around $500 making it, give or take a couple $100 just on reusing stuff and getting new stuff. But I think I'm going to probably go ahead and redo it. The main reason for that is currently we have our harness connected down here and then run up over, and it comes right here, and then you have a branch out for this side, a branch out for this side, and then this right here, which is like map sensor, intake air temp and everything. And honestly, it is just a little bit it's a good idea, but I executed it wrong. I should have made these connections. I should have made this detachable, and I should have made these detachable. And the reason for that is because I want to go ahead and change out like where I'm going to put my map sensor. I want to change out you know, injectors, stuff like that. And so I can't actually do that anymore because none of it matches what I currently have. And so I'm going to have to go ahead and either salvage half this harness or make a whole new harness where it actually has a break right here, so I can swap parts out and not have to redo the entire harness. So I think that's going to be coming up on the docket. It is going to take a lot of time. I remember last year when I did it, I think it took me about a month to do the whole harness. Granted, that was just working on the weekends, but it was a significant amount of time. So that's going to be coming up in the future. I'm going to be looking into making a custom intake. I think currently the only intake that I really like is the the Pucker Factory front-facing log manifold. And the reason I like it is because obviously it's front-facing, comes out about here, and if the turbo's right here, we can't really access this pipe all that much anymore. But also it simplifies the turbo routing, so if we have, you know, intercooler coming around back up here, we don't have to go all the way back up and around like we were before. We can just go whoop right into the front. So it's $1,000 for the Pucker Factory one, and I think that is kind of a lot of money. Obviously, it's a very high quality intake. I'm not saying it's not worth it, but I'm going to be spending a significant amount of money on this anyways. So I'm going to look into making my own. I may not end up doing it. I may just end up getting the Pucker Factory one. But we will see how that goes. There's a lot of stuff that plays into a intake manifold design, and you really don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to look into it. You know, my time is free, but if it gets to the point where I'm like, you know, I need something and I'm not 100% sure that what I'm going to do is enough, I'm probably just going to buy that one. So we'll see how that goes. we got a bunch of stuff for all of this, guys. I think next week we're probably going to try cleaning all this up, pulling the wiring harness off and installing all the new parts that we have, probably pulling this off, doing the timing, and then putting on the new harmonic balancer and different pulleys that we have to make that work, because it does have ribbed belts for the alternator and water pump, I believe. And then these are still V-belt, I believe. But honestly, guys, this is looking pretty good. I'm really hoping my parts come in soon. Whatever order, like if we get hood and bumper in, I'll definitely show you guys those first. But you know, we're gonna make steady progress on this. It's definitely not falling to the. It's not gonna fall out of the forefront of my work. But I just don't have the parts in for it, so that'll be fun. We're gonna have a great time with this project. We're gonna do it right. That's the most important thing. I do want to drive this car really badly. It has probably been a solid year since I daily drove this, but I really, really want to do it right this time. So we're going to pull all this off and take you guys with me through the whole engine build and setup here, and then of course getting it back in the car. There's only a few things I want to do with that wiring harness to kind of clean it up, but other than that, it's just going to be kind of staying the same way. So guys, I appreciate you watching this video. I know it was a lot of me rambling here, but I'm super excited for this. I'm hoping parts get in sooner than later, and there is going to be some Miata content coming up because I did some stuff on it that I filmed, and I don't want to like leave you guys hanging. But just because there's Miata content, don't think that I'm giving up on the Z. Don't think that it is falling out of my priority list. It is just stuff that I'm doing on the side at the same time. So, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next week, and I hope you have a great week.